I have had enough of boring decor, and that includes picture frames. If you also feel like there is way too much sad beige decor everywhere, don't worry, we are here to change that one item at a time. Hey, I'm Shugi, the artist behind Novyrajewelry and clay art, and today we are going to make whimsical felt picture frames for this adorable picture of my cat, and I will be decorating it with little trinkets you can probably find around your own home as well. So grab a snack, get cozy, and enjoy the video. This is actually part of my imaginary series. Imaginary because I've never officially said it was a series, but I try out whimsical crafts to discover what I generally enjoy making, so I can make them perfect later if I wish to do so. And it's also a great excuse for me to make new possible products for my online shop, link in the description. So far, I've tried making an elven circlet out of stainless steel, which was a lot of fun, but absolutely destroyed my hands. And no, I don't really want to switch to brass or aluminum wire. A month or two ago, I also experimented with shrink plastic, and today we are making whimsical felt picture frames. I saw a few people making them online and thought they looked like so much fun, so I decided to give them a try. I actually made two of these, but I accidentally only filmed myself doing one because I got completely in the zone, so sorry about that. For this video, I decided to go with a blue, gold and white color palette. First, I drew and cut out all the necessary pieces by hand. I do think I made the frame just a tiny bit too small though. Next time I will make it about a centimeter wider so the picture can slide in easily. I decided to add these ribbon-like details from felt in the corner. Originally I wanted to add some lace as well, but the only lace I could find at home was way too wide and thick for this project, so I had to abandon the idea. First I was scared using this thin white felt on the dark blue felt, but once I put it on, I realized that it wasn't very straight through, even if it seems like it is. It looked nice, and I was happy with it. The original design I drew up for this picture frame was with burgundy color, and I was trying to make it like very royal-esque. But then I realized I do not have a felt that's burgundy colored, so I had to completely rethink my idea. And then I realized that blue, gold and white is also very royally, so it was just perfect. I also decided to use gold as a complementary color because I felt that if I added blue ribbons to an already blue frame, everything would end up looking way too monochromatic. I found all of these buttons and brooch-like pieces in my mom's sewing stash. She has this huge bowl filled with so many different buttons and bips and bobs. Some of them are over 30 years old. Not all of them are especially interesting, but I think these ones fit my whimsical picture frames perfectly. I was especially excited to find this brooch-like button because it gives the frame such a royal look. It actually became the inspiration for adding the gold accents. I also found this beautiful shiny blue button. My mom told me it came from one of her earlier childhood dresses, and she is honestly still surprised it still exists after all of these years. I originally wanted to make the bow out of felt, but I decided to use a ribbon instead. Sadly, I only had a few thinner ribbons, even though I wanted a big puffy bow. So I wrapped the ribbon around my hand several times, tied the middle with a thin piece of thread, and then gently pulled the loops apart to fluff it up, and it turned out quite cute. You will also see me later burn the ends of the ribbon. I do this to seal the edges so they don't fray and eventually come apart. Since the ribbon is made from synthetic materials, it melts and catches fire pretty easily, so you have to be quite careful. I did accidentally burn my bow first, so I had to quickly remake it. Honestly, I didn't mind because the second one turned out way nicer. And to hide the thread in the middle, I will actually be just adding a bead later on. After painstakingly making the ribbon, painstakingly because it kept slipping and it was decently hard to tie, I finally moved on to cutting out the smaller pieces, like the different flowers. Drawing all of these tiny flowers was already challenging enough, but cutting them out neatly was a whole different story. This was my first time ever sewing or working with felt, so I was definitely up for a challenge. Cutting the felt with tiny scissors wasn't exactly easy. The felt itself cut nicely, but all the petals ended up looking really blocky. I had to keep trimming and reshaping them until the flowers were almost half of their original size. Originally, I wanted to make these picture frames inspired by my favorite characters, but that felt a little too ambitious for my first attempt. I also didn't want to accidentally create a slightly terrifying felt version of them. Lately, I've also been trying to figure out my brand because I feel like my style is a bit all over the place. The jewelry I make is very elegant, whimsical, royal and fairycore, while a lot of my other crafts end up being whimsical in a much more kawaii Japanese-inspired cutesy style. I feel like that's been hurting both my reach and my brand. When I look at a successful small business owner, they usually have a very recognizable style and a core product they keep creating content around. Their audience knows exactly what to expect. Meanwhile, I feel like I'm trying to appeal to too many different people because I genuinely enjoy making so many different things. So now I'm trying to define what I want my brand to truly represent and narrow my product range down to around 5 to 7 categories. Right now I'm thinking jewelry, clay charms and magnets, stickers, art prints, handmade plushies, and one more product that I don't want to spoil just yet. So don't forget to subscribe if you want to see what that is. My main goal is to make all of these products feel like they come from the same whimsical cottagecore fantasy world, even if they are different types of creations. This realization came after visiting an anime convention last weekend. One of my favorite parts of a con is the artist alley, and I'm hoping to have my own booth there this autumn. I noticed that so many people were buying stickers, acrylic keychains and pins of their favorite characters. What I couldn't quite understand was how out of around 60 artists, at least 30 or 40 of them were selling what looked like very similar products. Meanwhile, some of the booths with the most unique products and really distinct art style actually seemed to be selling much less. Then there were artists whose work was absolutely beautiful and original, but their products and overall style felt a little bit all over the place. Because everything looked more handcrafted and unique, the prices were naturally a bit higher, and I noticed that a lot of people would just stop to admire their work, but wouldn't actually buy anything as they probably felt overwhelmed by the options. On the other hand, there were those 2 to 3 artists who were clearly more established. They had a very recognizable style, beautifully designed booths, and carefully curated selection of products that all felt like they belonged together. Their displays looked incredible, and people just kept buying things even though their products were some of the most expensive in the entire alley. Seeing that really made me realize how important it is to build a cohesive brand. It's not just about making beautiful products, it's about creating a recognizable word that people instantly connect with. That's exactly what I want to work towards with my own shop. Next week I'm going to start reworking my website, and I might have a little rebrand as well. Since my business is pretty small, I think it's perfect time to make those changes. I'm also planning to refresh my product line, introduce seasonal collections, and focus on creating higher quality content. Lately, I feel like I haven't made much progress in growing my brand, and I really want to change that. I'm excited to create a more cohesive brand, one that feels intentional, tells a story, and reflects the whimsical fantasy world that I want Novyra to be known for. So I hope you will continue to support me on this journey. If you have any tips, please let me know down in the comments. Sorry for this little tangent, I just wanted to talk about it for a bit. Anyway, in the meantime, my picture frame seems to be coming along pretty nicely. As you saw me do it earlier, I decided to glue on the ribbon corner decorations instead of sewing them. Felt glues together really well, and since I will be sewing other decorations on top of it later, they will help keep everything securely in place anyway, and I felt like it would have consumed way too much time. The process of making this was pretty repetitive, so I had to cut out some parts. I tried to keep the more satisfying moments in the video though. I was a little bit worried about sewing on the 3D buttons, like the ones that don't lay flat and have a little back piece with a hole in it, but surprisingly they were actually really easy to sew straight on. I thought they would end up leaning or hanging to one side a lot more. The flowers I decided to secure with a little X in the middle, as I felt like sewing around it would create so much unnecessary noise, and I think they are very adorable this way. I also decided later on to add some shiny white glass bits to the frame because I felt like something was missing. I did have to find ones with slightly bigger holes than the others because the thread I was using was quite thick and the needle didn't fit through every bead easily. I also wanted to secure each bead twice because I didn't want the detail to fall off when putting the picture inside of the frame. I've also seen people using top-loader card or picture holders inside these frames to protect the picture and extra stiffness, which is really clever idea. However, I don't have anything like that at home, and I'm trying to avoid spending a lot of money on a new hobby before I even know if I will enjoy it long term. I must say my needlework and tying of loose ends still needs quite a bit of practice, but that's all part of the learning process. I did try practicing a few stitches on a scrap piece of fabric before filming, but let me tell you, making 2 stitches did not magically turn me into a sewing expert. Also, I have to say this picture frame is giving me such magical girl vibes, or maybe even horse racing vibes. The blue and gold colors especially remind me of the ribbon horses get after winning competitions. I didn't even plan for this inspiration, but I just can't unsee it. What do you think? Which vibe does it give you more? Magical girl or fancy horse racing champion? Making this frame made me realize that I have a weird obsession with buttons. They look so adorable, and I remember seeing some shaped like apples, bananas, stars and other fruits. I think those would work very well with a craft like this. But I have to restrain myself from buying everything cute I see. But trust me, I would if I could. Another thing I find absolutely adorable are bows. When I was a child, I never really wore any bows, and when I was a teenager, I thought it was for little girls and I'm too cool to wear it, and I was also afraid of getting relentlessly bullied for it at school. But now that I'm an adult, I must say I love wearing bows whenever I can. Now I feel kinda stupid for not daring to express myself during my school years, but if you don't really fit the norm, your lovely class of year mates will find any reason to pick at you, and sadly you can't really do much about it. So I just decided to act basic at school and start wearing my favorite things outside of it. Also, back when I went to high school, it was still weird to watch anime and play video games for a girl. So whenever anyone asked what I did in my pastime, I just said I read and did arts, which is true, but it was only like 30 to 40% of my free time. Luckily, no one really cared enough to pry. I hated conflict, I still do, so I just did anything to avoid it. But looking back, it feels so pointless. Anyway, I was pretty nervous about sewing the sides together because they needed to look even for the frame to turn out very nicely, and as I've mentioned before, I've never actually sewn anything in my life before. It definitely took much longer than I would like to admit, so I'm only going to include a few stitches worth of footage, otherwise this video would probably be 1 or 2 hours longer. Sometimes my needle would get stuck in the fabric and I had to bring out my pliers to pull it through, and honestly I'm surprised the picture frame didn't tear apart during the process. However, I did accidentally stab my finger at one point, so I had to stop, clean it and put on a bandage to make sure I wouldn't get it dirty, and I do wonder when I will finally be able to make a sewing or wire working video without hurting myself somewhere along the way. I decided to sew the frame together with a white thread because in my opinion blue thread would have looked very boring and the white thread gave it such a nice little pop of contrast. I was contemplating a lot whether I should sew or glue this frame. Gluing would have been much quicker, but I feel like that's much less sturdy and would not have been as professional. Then I couldn't decide if I should sew this part by hand or use a sewing machine, but thanks to the hundreds of details I put on, it would not have worked. It just could not pass through the sewing machine and would have gotten stuck. Also, I tried 5 different stitches, but I just decided to go with the simplest one, which was perfect choice for my skill level. I have to say, sewing looks much easier in a video than it is in real life. And finally, it was done. Here you can see the other one I made as well. It's pink and purple colored version. Which one is your favorite, or would you have chosen a completely different color combination? And as I feared, I did make the picture frame ever so slightly too small, but luckily the picture still slid in quite nicely. The picture I used was 10 by 15 centimeters and the piece I cut out was 11 by 16. The height turned out to be perfect, but next time I think I will make the width around 16.5 to 17 centimeters, so I have a little bit more room. Well, I hope you enjoyed this cozy crafting video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, as it really helps me reach more people and continue creating this kind of videos. If you have the time, I would truly appreciate if you checked out my website, which you can find in the description or in my bio. And as a little thank you for watching all the way to the end, here is 15% off coupon appearing on the screen right now. You can also find it down in the description. The first 5 people who order any 2 items from my shop can use it. Also, don't forget to check my other crafting videos, they are all very interesting and fun. Thank you so much for watching, stay safe and whimsy, have a lovely rest of your day and I will see you in the next one. Bye!